Vous êtes sur Africa 24, bienvenue dans votre nouveau numéro de décryptage. Booster le développement socio-économique du continent, une mission attribuée au Nouveau Partenariat pour le développement de l'Afrique, Nepad. Créée en 2001, cette agence des Nations Unies va bientôt totaliser 20 ans d'existence. Quelles sont ses réalisations et projets d'avenir? Nous en parlons avec Estherine Fotabong, qui est la directrice de cette structure au niveau des Nations Unies. Vous êtes directrice du Nouveau Partenariat pour le développement de l'Afrique, Nepad. Dites-nous exactement quel est le rôle de cette agence des Nations Unies.
Nepad, you can look at Nepad first at two-pronged perspective. Nepad first as a philosophy of development. So a philosophy of socio-economic transformation of the continent that in 2003, the African Union member states thought it was necessary to have a vision, a development program that would collectively transform the continent. That vision has been now institutionalized at the African Union. This is the first ever socio-economic program of the continent that is institutionalized in the African Union architecture. So we had the vision, and then we have the secretariat. So the last, since 2003, we have had the Nepad Secretariat, which was then established to coordinate the vision. That was transformed in 2010 to the Nepad Planning and Coordinating Agency. Now, in the context of the overall African Union reform that has been led by President Kagame to make the Union more efficient and more relevant to the African people, the Nepad Planning and Coordinating Agency has been transformed to the African Union Development Agency. It's the first ever development agency of the continent, because the heads of state realized the necessity to have an institution totally focusing on the development aspects of the continent.
Cette agence a été créée en 2001. Bientôt, le Nepad va totaliser 20 ans d'existence. Quel bilan pouvez-vous dresser?
I think a very positive one. Let me first say, from a political perspective, there's very strong support by the African Union heads of states for the agency. And beyond the political support, I think there's a great acceptance from African citizens for an agency like this. And I have to say, in addition to the sectoral achievements that the AUDA has made, and I can cite them, it's only through the Nepad AUDA that we've developed continental frameworks for all the development sectors in the continent. So we have PIDA that is on infrastructure, that has identified the regional infrastructure that are important for development and economic participation and the integration of the continent. We have CADAP, which I'm sure most of you know, which has focused on agricultural transformation of the continent and have given member states the capacity to improve on the planning in agriculture and agribusiness development. We have the Environmental Action Plan that has addressed the questions on environmental management in the continent. And we have several others, including science and technology, that have particularly requested member states to invest 1% of their GDP into science and technology innovations in the continent. So in terms of sectoral performance, I think the AUDA has done a lot in terms of defining the priorities of development for the continent.
Vous avez des projets grandioses. Certains ont déjà été réalisés. Qui finance ces projets?
That's a very good question. I think for us, we are very excited with the development of AUDA. When Nepad started, we had the African Union supporting the operational aspects of the agency. So the staff and the running costs, and a significant amount of the programmatic budget of the agency was development partners. But I'm pleased to say that since African Union Development Agency has been established, we have more and more programmatic budget coming from the African Union member states. So right now the target is to have 80-20% of the budget allocation, so 80% coming from African Union member states and 20% from our development partners.
Dans un continent divisé par des guerres et conflits, comment arrivez-vous à travailler pour que ces aspects-là ne sapent pas vos efforts?
Indeed, I think that is the concern for everyone, for us as African Union Development Agency, but I think for the political leadership as well. And that's why you can see the theme of the year will be on silencing the gun. Because it's two ways. You cannot develop when you don't have peace. And if you develop and you go into conflict, it takes you 10 steps backwards. So whatever development progress you have made, you are going to lose it all. So I think the importance of achieving peace in the continent is critical for our development objectives. So for us as AUD and Nepad, we want to work with post-conflict countries because the need is highest there, where we can help in reconstruction, planning, and help them to put in place measures that can drive their development goals. So again, the short answer to your question is eradicating the continent of conflict is critical and should be really of top priority for our political leaders, and we are pleased.
La circulation des personnes et des biens dans le continent représente encore un casse-tête. L'entrée dans plusieurs pays est soumise aux visas difficiles à avoir. Que faites-vous pour échapper à ces obstacles?
Indeed, again, that's a very interesting. We cannot talk about an integrated continent if we don't encourage freedom of movement. And right now, I think more than 70% of our member states, you still need visa to enter into our countries by Africans. Meanwhile, you have maybe European countries coming into some of our countries with no visa. So 2 years ago, they launched the African passport. I think the African Union is pushing hard to make that become a reality. But even before we have the continental passport, the regions need to make free movement easier for their citizens of the region. I think ECOWAS, SADC have already this. Central Africa is lagging behind a bit, but I think effort needs to be made to move there. So in our work, what we do in tourism, we also encourage the visa, to acquire visa on entry, and you can get visa for one country and use it to go into the countries in the region. These are issues that are real, that are challenging, but as African Union Development Agency, through our various programs, whether it's in tourism, whether we have another program called One Stop Border Post, which is encouraging movement of people. So we are trying to make sure that we tackle this issue because it's critical, particularly when we are talking about the continental free trade area.